There are a few franchises that I think I've valued as highly for as long as the Tony Hawk games, as the Tony Hawk franchise. It's transcended. I don't know, man. It's a platformer. It's not just a sports game. It's not just a skateboarding game. It's a fast moving platformer with tight level design and trick system and mobility that is built around all of that. At the end, it's been so good for so long, and I'm not going to say that that the franchise is still great. It hit some very rough patches, right? I think kind of post Thug 2, those games were simply not as good. But that was what, five? That was 6 games in. Thug 2 is the 6th Tony Hawk game. And the games that came after it were not terrible video games. It just became this situation of diminishing returns combined with, every year they had to add new features, and they did, and I think that's admirable and important. But you hit a point with it where you're like, okay, I don't think that the slow motion nail the trick system is really what I'm looking for, or like all these other wheeled vehicles, bikes and power lawnmowers, or like the goofy stuff that they did through Thug 2 and some of that. There are aspects of it where the thing that they spent the year on in this annual franchise just kind of fell a little flat. But at the end of the day, it's still Tony Hawk, and the levels were still good enough, and it wasn't until they kind of stopped, really. They got to a point where they made Tony Hawk's Ride, and that's the one that had a physical board and was just a completely different thing. You had Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam for the Wii. You had the snowboarding game that also used the skateboard controller, and then they kind of tried to reboot it, bring it back with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, and then Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, which those are actually bad games. I remember the time being very angry. It really just this was at a time when Activision was moving so far in the direction of, hey, we're going to really focus on Call of Duty, and maybe, at the time, I guess Destiny was maybe theirs or about to be theirs, but, it just became like, oh, Activision, they're the Call of Duty people, and they also publish Destiny, I guess. I don't know. But they were getting out of most of the other stuff, and Tony Hawk and the contract with Tony Hawk and all that stuff seemed to expire, and that was that, and I kind of thought like, well, maybe we're just never gonna see one of these ever again. So when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 was announced and then released, and they remade the first 2 games in the franchise, it was incredible. It was here's these 2 great games, but not exactly the way you remember them. They included the mobility and trick options that later games in the franchise would introduce. Things like the spine transfer from 4, or the wall plant or sticker slap that came in, a little bit later than that. They left that in, and that opened up new capabilities in these old levels, and gave you something that, like, if you went back to actually the trick system as it existed in the very first Tony Hawk, it's a little hard to go back to it. And so it was a smart move on their part. And I thought that was a really wonderful game. It wasn't the biggest budget thing, but it got the job done, and it got the job done well. And it ran well. It ran great on PC and all of that. And it sounded like that, like, oh, they're gonna move ahead. They're gonna do 3, or they're gonna do 3 and 4. Or they're gonna do something. And then the studio that made 1 and 2 got turned into a Blizzard support studio, and they kind of got Activisioned, I guess, a little bit, and shuffled off into the, into the Diablo mines, I guess. And it felt like the dream was dead. It felt like, oh man, we had it. They did the thing. They actually brought back Tony Hawk and they made it great. They did a great job of bringing that back. They created a platform where they could keep doing this for, the rest of the games, at least in the early half of the series, and then it fell apart. And now here it is. This is coming to us from Iron Galaxy, which is the studio that did the PC version last time around. And they are handling all of the development this time out. It is Tony Hawk 3. It is Tony Hawk 4. I played a bunch of it. I got to go to a little hotel banquet room and capture a bunch of footage of it, and I have that here. We watched a little bit of this after the Xbox conference, and so you may have seen some of this footage if you watched all of that video. But I felt that, this was important enough to kind of get its own thing. And so I thought we would maybe watch through a little bit of it. They also provided some B-roll. It's not, I don't know. It's not super exciting, but this is, they announced like 2 more new levels. There's 3 new levels in the game. And so they had previously announced a water park level. And so they announced Pinball and a movie studio level. And those new levels are good enough that now I think I want them to actually make a new game. And they should just call it Tony Hawk 5 and move and just pretend that game never happened. But yeah, I don't know. They found a studio in Chicago who could make a good Tony Hawk game, I guess. Actually, I don't know if the Chicago arm of Iron Galaxy is doing this or if it's Orlando or what. But anyway, I should have asked. I don't know the answer to that question. Anyway, I have some footage here. Why don't we look at the B-roll that they sent, because I haven't really looked at this much. And we can see here that we've got that B-roll. Is this not just hang on. There we go. This is my favorite track on the so this is the game has a like streamer mode or whatever where it's going to, you know what, let me double check here the color. If I move it over here, does it? Okay, no. When I capture web browser videos, what monitor I play it back on matters, because HDR is on one but not the other, and that whole thing. But that doesn't seem to matter here. Okay, so this is Andy Anderson B-roll. Obviously this is the Canada level from Tony Hawk 3, and this is the best track on the streamer mode playlist. An incredibly bootleg, royalty-free version of Bitch Please. Damn, Dr. Dre, you hit him 3 times. You know, the talking skater stuff they did in the previous game, I don't know that I ever loved that. This still has it, obviously. Aha! Ooh, yeah! Woo! It's like, I don't know, vaguely Simlish or something almost. Okay. Well, I have some Canada footage as well. I'm not skating this well in my footage. That, you know, you go and play Tony Hawk after not having played it for a while. It's like all the stuff is there, but I feel like I always try to do too much. It's like I can't rein it in. I'm just constantly too greedy. And so you'll see a lot of footage from me playing that is me doing combos and then screwing them up. There ain't no limit to this as long as we drop gangsta. Okay. Okay. So that's Canada. That's this Andy Anderson V-roll. There's some Create a Park stuff in here. Cool. I always tell myself like, oh, I'm gonna really get into the park creator, and then it never happens. So the thing I always hope for when it comes to created parks is that they have a really great way to share those online, and you sift through them and find the best ones and all of that, so that you can so that you can benefit from the hard work of others. Whoa. It looks like you can create, you can plop items down in the world, not just letters. Yeah, I wonder if that's, well, that looked like a hard hat and was called hard hat. I was going to say, I wonder if you could name them yourself, but I'm going to guess not. I'm going to guess you probably, because you're collecting money like you did in the previous one. So I'm guessing it's like, oh, you can unlock passports, you can unlock hard hats and maybe stuff like that. Was that like a sound trigger? The little music note next to that pickup that made that whistle play? Aggressive NPC. Nice. All right, let's move ahead a little bit here. Okay. Pilot wings. Wait a minute. All right. Yeah, this doesn't look that different from, other attempts at Create a Skater in the past, but it looks well made for what it is. All right, does that work? Wait. Let's rewind this back and I guess we'll never know. Damn it, B-roll. For a second there, the B-roll got good, but they did not make good on it. Here's some fly-throughs of the two newly announced parks. Here is Pinball. It's in a pinball machine. And you can see Tony Hawk sitting up there playing the pinball machine, which is neat. That's neat. It's a neat idea. Okay, and then movie studio. I've said it before. This level kind of reminds me of the first level. Oh, that wasn't getting captured here. Let me roll it back. Sorry about that. This level kind of reminds me a little bit of the first level of Aggressive Inline, but a little smaller because this is a competition level, so it's not full of goals and everything. It's not goals big. It's competition level big. Yeah, okay. So that's the B-roll. They also sent over the Bam Margera B-roll, but it's just footage of him talking about how he used to miss flights playing Tony Hawk. So it's not they put that out before. You've probably seen that elsewhere. Okay, here's the stuff that I have. I will remind you that this footage they had OBS set up. This is captured from a PC. But the bit rate on it's not awesome. I'll say that up front. So, I think this video looks a little grungy in spots. We'll skip through it. Michelangelo is in it. Seemingly just Michelangelo. Which, I guess if you're going to choose one of the turtles, that's the one. And he has a special where he flips his nunchucks over his head as he spins. And then I was like, I'm not here to play as Michelangelo. I'm looking for someone else. Again, the roster of old and new skaters. It seems like they've done a pretty good job with that. Though I think the only skater that anyone is really... Well, people seem to be talking about Andy Anderson. I'm not familiar with him. I just don't really keep up. But people are just talking about... Look at that. Look at the line of dialogue here. Or the little flavor text they have written. A potentially major omission from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 had fans worried. Would Activision really leave one of the series' most beloved skaters behind? Nope. I don't know. Seemed like maybe they almost did. Seemed like maybe they almost did. I don't know. And look at his placement on the menu here as like down with the DLC guys and stuff, almost as if they put him in real late. And maybe he's unlockable. Like I don't know. Maybe these are all unlockable in DLC skaters at the bottom, and maybe that's a thing. I honestly don't have the answer to that question either. And so yeah, Bam Margera's in it. I don't believe it's his. It's not his voice when you hear the ha ha ho ho noises that all the skaters make. It's not him. Which sticks out just because I think he just has such a distinctive fucked up voice. I don't know, man. All this Westchester.
I cannot wait for this incredible contest to begin.
When I think about Tony Hawk 3, Tokyo is the level I think of because it was the first level that they let us play, and I've told the story before. In fact, I've told the story before this week. The first time Activision brought Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 to the GameSpot offices, the build was at a place where it loaded the entire level into memory, and so if you pulled the disc out, the game could still be played without music. And so they, sorry, there's gaps in this footage where like I was pausing to talk to someone and stuff like that. So I'm kind of skipping through it here. I didn't want to edit it beforehand because, Anyway, they took the preview build of the game with them when they left, but they did not turn off the PlayStation 2. And so we just had the Tokyo level sitting there running in a PS2 debug for like 2 weeks. And we just played it over and over and over and over again. The ramps and the pools and everything looked so round. Here's the other thing I wanted to check on because I kept trying to do it and it was not happening. If you remember, Bam Margera's special trick is like a down-up square and he does what is called the jackass, where the board flips up and hits him in the face. And I was like, man, why? It does not seem to be in here. What the hell? And then, well, also I wanted to put the Benihana on down right instead of down left. I mean, let's be real here. That's what matters most. But when I was talking with Jordan Midler from VideoGamesChronicle.com about this very game, I believe he was the one who pointed out, like, yeah, you know, they're not going to have a trick called the jackass after he spent the last year and a half talking shit about Johnny Knoxville and all those guys. I was like, oh yeah, right, yeah. That's a good point. I wish the trick was in here under a different name, personally, but because I just like a trick. I don't care what it's called. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm guessing it's not in there, or maybe I just didn't notice and it's just in there under a different name, but I don't have the answer to that question. Here's all the goal cameras for Pinball, and this is technically a part of the Tony Hawk 4 campaign. Now, that's kind of been the other worrisome point about this game, is that it is not... The Tony Hawk 4 campaign levels are not presented in their original format. Which, if you remember, Tony Hawk 3 to Tony Hawk 4, the big transition was they got away from the 2-minute timer. And instead there were, you know, it was more like a Grand Theft Auto type thing where you had mission givers in the world with arrows over their head. You'd skate up to them, hit a button, and they would talk to you for a minute and go, the frat guys, those jerks sure are jerks, you know, or whatever it is. And then maybe a different timer would show up for that specific goal. You know, it was a pretty big change. And I do think, you know, it was something where they looked at Grand Theft Auto at that point and probably said, hey, you know, what if we did something like that? I think that worked for that game, and it got them. Tony Hawk 4, to me, is a transitional game that gets you to Thug and gets you to Thug 2, and the kind of, you know, the crazy things that they added to this franchise in those two games. You could not have gotten there without the changes they introduced in Tony Hawk 4. But I think Tony Hawk 4 on its own is... maybe I think it's a little less interesting than 3. I think the level design is not as cool and fun as the levels in 3. And so, you know, I've grown cooler on Tony Hawk 4 over the years, I'll say. In that I don't know that I think that game holds up as well as 3 or Thug 1. I guess both Thugs. I don't know. Like, at some point, Thug just becomes, you know, like it's Bam versus Tony, and it's this big Jackass thing because Jackass was so popular that they turned the game into shopping cart garbage time, you know, and it was super fun. Don't get me wrong; those are great games. But like looking back on it now, it's like, yeah. So, you know, the presence of a 2-minute timer in these Tony Hawk 4 levels, which, you know, I'll skip ahead a little bit to a traditional... okay, actually, here's the movie studio. The other new levels. There's 3 new levels in all, but these were the 2 that they had just, like, you know, announced as of this morning, I guess today. They announced these 2 levels. Yeah, this level's good. It's you know, it is smaller, like most of the competition levels tend to be, but I think it works fine. And I like the look of it. I like the layout of it. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to use here. I would say that about all 3 of the new levels in here. Again, the 3 new levels in here are good enough that I think that Activision should just give Iron Galaxy should be making a brand new Tony Hawk game. Like, I think these levels are good enough that I think that absolutely they should be making a full game's worth of levels at this point. Okay, let's skip ahead here. So here we have college, the first level from Tony Hawk 4. I'm just in free skate mode here. And I do restart it a little later, I think, with the run timer on. So there's you get the initial list of goals, and then when you complete those, it will unlock pro goals. There are also some scenarios where like you kind of do need to skate up to something to kind of activate a goal, like the skitching on a car goal in this level. Like the car doesn't start driving around until you skate up to it in the parking garage. But you know, you see those kegs are there, like the goal of knocking over the beer kegs and dealing with the frat guys, like that's still here. You still grind down the banners for Officer Dick, and you know, like that stuff is still present. You know, the things that aren't here, you know, I'm sure that there are going to be a few goals that are modified or not present in some form that I just didn't pick up on. But the mini games, the things where you would like go play tennis for $100 or something, and you know, get your upgrade cash by completing these dopey mini games, that stuff is not here at all. I'm totally okay with that, to be honest. We saw some Canada earlier, so I won't spend too much time on this, but I did leave this starting area and go up here. One other thing, man. It's dumb. But nostalgia is dumb. I kind of miss the Nokia branding all over these levels. You know what I mean? Where's the Jeep? You know, you grind the switch, this thing goes up as expected. First time trying to go up there, I totally bone it and don't do it right, as expected. And again, the bit rate on this video is not awesome. I will remind you of that. This is a little grainy. But this was running on PC. It looked very sharp and fine. You know, like, yeah. Obviously, it did not have video artifacts. They're not making the Kane and Lynch 2 of skateboarding games. Here is the here's the water park. Aggressive NPC. Keep that aggressive NPC in mind. We'll talk about him a little bit more a little later on in the footage. A little bit of cruise ship here. Yeah, there I am. Just hitting too many buttons, refusing to not hit buttons. My Tony Hawk shame is I just love to hit the buttons. I did ask them about airport because I did play some of this, and you hear the announcer giving announcements. And it's a lot of new announcements. I don't know that any of the same dialogue or the same script is in here. I think they wrote all new stuff. And so I asked them, I asked them a question that I knew that they would not be able to immediately answer, and they would look at me like I was insane. Before it was more traditional, like, this flight is leaving for, like, it was a lot much more straightforward. Like, the dialogue here is a lot more jokey. And so, as far as I can tell, there is no call out for a flight leaving for Paluma in this game anymore. And as someone who is from Paluma, I have to say that I can only take this as a personal affront on behalf of the studio leadership, and I hold them personally responsible for this. Truly repugnant behavior on their part. The story, what I've always said, and I believe this, I'm not a lunatic. Paluma had just gotten their skate park around the time this game was coming out. A friend of mine actually worked very hard talking to the city council and convincing them that a skate park would not just be a place to sell drugs, that it would be good for kids and good for the community and all that. And he finally convinced them, and they did build a skate park that is still there. And it happened around the same time that this game was coming out. And so I always assumed that it was kind of a call out acknowledging that there was a skate park there. And not someone at Neversoft liking that I reviewed Tony Hawk 2 well or something insane like that. Of course not. That would be stupid. Here's San Francisco. I did a little bit of this, and then I think after this I was like, I should show some goals. What am I doing? It was like they were literally like, just hang out, man. Just record as much as you want. And I was like, I looked at my watch and I was like, I don't have to be anywhere for like 3 hours. What if I just sat here for 3 hours? And I'm like, no, I can't do that. So I ended up recording about 45 minutes and then going on my way. But
Don't touch me.
they're not quite done with the game yet. I mean, the game's out in about a month, so they have to be pretty close. I'll say this build of the game didn't feel undone. A lot of the front end and framework stuff looks similar to the previous game. The way the challenges and some of these other things seem to be built. Okay, so here's college. Like, look at, so here's the goal list for college. Like, that's a pretty hefty list. Maybe you could do all that in 2 minutes. I don't know. That seems like a lot to get done in one run. So, you know, some new goals and some old goals in here. The other thing is, and I think I understand this a little bit better now, is that they did announce a while back that you would be able to set the timer and change it. So if you didn't want to have a 2-minute timer, you wanted to have an hour, you could do that. And at the time I was like, why would you do that? And the thing I didn't realize is that your goal progression in those hour-long sessions still counts. And so you could, in theory, just turn that up to an hour and play the Tony Hawk 4 goals kind of at your own pace without this whole like, oh, I've got 2 minutes, I need to restart and do this, I need to restart and do this. And you can, you know, that's a way for you to kind of approach that stuff. I think, you know, to me that seems like a kind of and it almost seems a little bit like a hacky kind of way to get some of that Tony Hawk 4, you know, no time pressure thing back. You know, just like, oh, let's make the timer an hour. But that actually does sound like it would work for that. You know, you're still not going to get the 100% authentic Tony Hawk 4 campaign experience, right? So, like, if that is your line, if your measure for success is that 100%, then this is not that. You know, like they have made some changes, and talking to them about it, it's not like one of the things that was on their mind about that specific change is trying to make sure that Tony Hawk 3 and Tony Hawk 4 feel similar and not like two wildly different games. So there's a case where like I accidentally started that goal and then did not chase it immediately, and so didn't actually skitch on that car. But I think that's a reasonable point, I think, as well, to try to bring Tony Hawk 4 more in line with the expectations from the previous 3 games, which I understand why they might do that. I don't know, you know, I don't know that I necessarily like 100% agree with that concept. But I also don't. So you see these pro goals here, you know, getting combo and getting, you know, some of this other stuff. Like there are pro goals for some of those levels. Check out the last goal on this list. Check that shit out. Here, let me move my head out of the way. Check that shit out. Here, I look at the goal. Look at this goal camera. They fucking put Eric Sparrow in this fucking game, dude. They retconned Eric Sparrow's first appearance in the timeline and slid him into a new level in the new Tony Hawk 4. How fucked up is that? I think it's I'm super excited to see that. And that also seems smart because it, you know, I think that's something that maybe gets people going, man, you gotta make Thug now, even more than maybe they already were. That's him, aggressive NPC. Yeah, so I think maybe you got to grind that bucket and dump it on him. That's my guess. I went looking for a way to get up there over here and did not find an easy way to get up there, but my guess is that that's what you're probably gonna do to get back at him. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I ended up kind of getting into the water park level and spent some more time there. Here's Kona. Which is, you know, very spread out in a way that seems weird now, you know. Come on, Pro Skater, go crazy. Is that Paul Stanley from Kiss? Come on, Pro Skater, go crazy. Anyway, as I was saying, you know, as someone who doesn't necessarily hold Tony Hawk 4 as like a sacred text the same way I do the first 3 games, I look at the changes they've made and go, you know, these are at bare minimum, these are acceptable changes, and in some cases they may actually be preferable. We'll have to wait and see until I can kind of go through the progression start to finish myself, but I definitely came away from this feeling extremely good about it. And yeah, I can't wait to, you know, the demo's out now, you know, so if you, but it's like I think it's a pre-order demo, so if you've pre-ordered, you can play the Foundry level, which is the first level from 3. Good start. I should have gone and found all the Quake rails and made the earthquake happen, but instead I did this. I like what they've done with these quarter pipes and stuff with the water behind them. Like, you know, the visual, you know, they've really gussied it up. They've made it look pretty nice. And yeah, I'm way into it. And yeah, like I said, I don't know that I have a huge I don't know that I have any real concerns specifically about the Tony Hawk 4 campaign stuff. I think that stuff now seems ever so slightly overblown. But also, again, you know, I get it. Like for some people that is their favorite game in the franchise, which I think is bonanza. But like, if you are that person, then yeah, I get it. You know, you're gonna look at that and go, yeah, this is not my Tony Hawk 4. But I also think that what they've made here is real damn good. I think this is pretty much the end of the footage. I think I just skated around here for a while and then accidentally opened the debug menu and whoops. And then I stood in that fire truck and I was like, you know, I should probably go. So yeah, that's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. When's it out? It's out. It says July 10th here, but it's one of those. It's one of those jobs where if you buy the expensive one, they're gonna let you play it early. And I think that version comes with Doom Guy. Oh yeah, the Doom Guy and the Revenant are part of the digital deluxe edition, as well as a hoverboard, some different skate decks, bonus in-game music, which I think is from Doom, and some hoodies and shit for a Create a Skater that have the Doom logo on it. Exclusive themed Create a Skater items as well. Oh, yeah, that's the hoodies and stuff. Yeah. And yeah, 3 days early. So, oh, and pre-orders get wireframe Tony shader. Okay. I should have looked and seen if that was there. You know what? I never played these games as Tony Hawk. I just never, you know. I just never did. I don't know. I just never did. I got it in Tony Hawk 1. I got into Bob Burnquist, and then in Tony Hawk 3, I got into Bam Margera, and then that was kind of it. Then in Tony Hawk 5, I got into, you know, Wheezy F Baby, Lil Wayne himself. He's got a hit record out now. You know, it's very exciting. They should have got him in it. No. Yeah, this looks fantastic. This looks like pretty much what I wanted out of that. Out of them making another one of these, and I hope that they get to continue doing this, because whether it's a remake of Thug or something that we get down the line, or like a whole new game, I think at this point I would rather see a whole new game. Like, it's been great getting these levels back and everything, but yo, what if they made a new Tony Hawk and it was actually good? It seems unfathomable, I know, with how this has gone. But those 3 levels are pretty good. They seem like they kind of fit in, generally speaking, and like, what if they made a bunch more? I think the other thing I kind of wish that they did is you know, if there was some kind of unified launcher for all of the for this game and the previous game, so that you could just jump from a Tony Hawk 1 level to a Tony Hawk 4 level and a 3 level in like multiplayer sessions. I think that would be really cool. You know, Thug Pro can do that. But you know, that would be nice. To have all of that stuff lumped together, you know. I don't believe they're doing that. I didn't really see any of the multiplayer stuff here, so I don't really have too much to say about that, other than I expect it will be quite similar to the previous game. And yeah, that's Tony Hawk, man. They're making this thing's coming out. It's out in like a month. And I want to play a lot more of it. I guess I should download. Maybe I should download that demo. I didn't even play the Foundry level while I was there playing it. So, you know, maybe I should go maybe I should go mess with that. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk about video games again soon, right here on YouTube, or you know, wherever you're watching this. I don't know. Maybe you downloaded this video and you have it on a hard drive somewhere. I don't know what you do, man. You and your YTDLP weirdos, command line tools, ripping video. You stealing my... All right. I'll see you next time.